The Perks of Being a Wallflower, page 105. The next morning started early. I still hadn't heard from Patrick or Sam or anybody, but I knew I would see them at graduation, so I tried not to worry too much. All my relatives, including my dad's family from Ohio, came to the house around 10 a.m. The two families really don't like each other, except for all of us younger cousins, because we don't know any better. We had this big brunch with champagne, and just like last year for my brother's graduation, my mom gave her dad, my grandfather, sparkling apple juice instead of champagne because she didn't want him to get drunk and make a scene. And he did the same thing he did last year. He said, "This is good champagne." I don't think he knew the difference because he's a beer drinker, sometimes whiskey. Around 12:30, brunch was over. All the cousins drove the cars because the adults were still a little too drunk to drive to the graduation. Except for my dad because he was too busy videotaping everyone with a camera he rented from the video store. Why buy a camera when you only need it 3 times a year? So my sister, brother, dad, mom, and I each had to go in a different car to make sure nobody got lost. I went with all my Ohio cousins who promptly pulled out a joint and passed it around. I didn't smoke any of it because I wasn't in the mood, and they said what they always say, "Charlie, you're such a pussy." So all the cars pulled into the parking lot and we all got out. And my sister yelled at my cousin Mike for rolling down the window when he was driving and messing up her hair. "I was smoking a cigarette," was his reply. "Couldn't you wait 10 minutes?" was my sister's. "But it was a great song," was his final word. So as my dad was getting the video camera out of the trunk and my brother was talking to some of the graduating girls who were a year older and looking good, my sister went for my mom to get my mom's purse. The great thing about my mom's purse is that no matter what you need at any moment in time, she has it. When I was little, I used to call it the first aid kit because that's what we all needed back then. I still can't figure out how she does it. After primping, my sister followed the trail of graduation caps to the field, and we all found our way to the bleachers. I sat in between my mom and my brother since my dad was off getting a better camera angle, and my mom kept shushing my grandfather, who kept talking about how many black people were in the school. When she couldn't stop him, she mentioned the story about the TV news reporter man talking about my brother. This made my grandfather call my brother over to talk about it. This was smart on my mom's part, because my brother is the only person who can get my grandfather to stop making a scene, because he's really direct about it. After the story, this is what happened. "Jesus, look at those bleachers. How many colored people?" My brother cut him off. "Okay, Grandpa, here's the deal. If you embarrass us one more time, I'm going to drive you back to the nursing home and you'll never get to see your granddaughter give a speech." My brother is real tough. "But then you won't see the speech either, big shot." My grandfather's real tough too. "Yeah, but my dad is videotaping it, and I can arrange it so I get to see the tape and you don't, can't I?" My grandfather has a really weird smile, especially when someone else wins. He didn't say anything more about it. He just started talking about the football and didn't even mention anything about my brother playing on a team with black kids. I can't tell you how bad it was last year since my brother was on the field graduating instead of up in the bleachers, making my grandfather stop. While they were talking about football, I kept looking for Patrick and Sam, but all I saw were those graduation caps in the distance. When the music started, the caps started marching towards the folding chairs set up on the field. That's when I finally saw Sam walking behind Patrick. I was so relieved. I couldn't tell if she was happy or sad, but it was enough just to see her and know that she was there. When all the kids got in the chairs, the music stopped, and Mr. Small got up and gave a speech about what a wonderful class this was. He mentioned some of the achievements of the school, and he had talked about the community day bake sale to start a new computer lab. And then he introduced the class president, who gave a speech. I don't know what class presidents do, but the girl gave a very good speech. Then it was time for the top 5 honor students to give a speech. That's the tradition in the school. My sister was second in her class, so she gave the 4th speech. The valedictorian is always last. Then Mr. Small, the vice principal, whom Patrick swears is gay, handed out the diplomas. The first 3 speeches were very familiar. They all had quotes from pop songs that had something to do with the future. And all through the speeches, I could see my mother's hands. She was gripping them tighter and tighter together. When they announced my sister's name, my mom uncoiled into applause. It was really great watching my sister get on the podium, because my brother was something like 223rd in his class, and consequently didn't get to give a speech. And maybe I'm biased, But when my sister quoted a pop song and talked about the future, it seemed great. I looked over at my brother and he looked over at me, and we both smiled. Then we looked at my mother and she was crying real soft and messy, so my brother and I each took one of her hands. She looked at us and smiled and cried harder. Then we both rested our heads on her shoulders like a sideways hug, which made her cry even harder, or maybe let her cry even harder. I'm not sure which. But she gave our hands a little squeeze and said, "My boys," real soft, and went back to crying. I love my mom so much. I don't care if it's coin to say that. I think on my next birthday, I'm going to get her a present. I think that should be the tradition. The kid gets the gifts from everybody, and then he buys one present for his mom since she was there too. I think that would be nice.